Recording
The
in
Planning
progress.
Commission is composed of citizens like yourselves. I'm Kate Donahue, Jennyville Road. To my right, not on the Planning Commission.
John Brooker Campbell, the town manager.
To my left,
I'm Dan German, I'm the co-chair of the Planning Commission.
John Magliocco, co-chair of the Planning Commission.
Jay Williams, clerk.
Steve Cowan, member or commissioner, and George Little is a commissioner and he's online.
The folks who just came in, there's a sign-up sheet over here. Can you?
right on the corner here. We've held open and publicly warned meetings on the first Wednesdays of the month, as well as other publicly warned meetings during the past years, which then and in the future you were and are still warmly invited to attend these public meetings. We also conducted a survey in 2023 to gather Heartlanders' opinions on topics such as land use, public lands, and commercial development. A brief overview of some of the proposed changes in future land use described in the town plan. I direct your attention to the Planning Commission reporting form for municipal plan amendments. It's a 5-page document available on the Planning Commission's page on the Hartland website. The 2025 town plan is also on the website, which can be found at heartland.govoffice.com. Those who may know that there is a sign-in sheet over in the corner of that table there. Thank you very much. Okay.
I'll speak first. I think just as a matter of introduction, to understand, I think most of you probably do, but the town plan is just that, it's a plan. It's not an enforceable document. It's not an ordinance, and it's just really a statement of where we want to go as a town or where we think we want to go. There is, however, the only thing that the town plan can do is that it also guides not only the town and its planning, but the environmental and Act 250 there is a provision in Act 250 that developments under Act 250 have to be in conformance with the town plan, or consistent with the town plan, I think is the exact language. So we do have an eye to that, and so we sometimes take positions in Act 250 hearings, rarely, but it's usually pretty well publicized when we do. But that's the extent of it. There's nothing in the town plan that you can read that's an ordinance. It doesn't restrict anything, and nothing will come into play unless any project also falls under Act 250. So in other words, if you don't need an Act 250 permit, there's nothing in the town plan that would even apply to you. Kate mentioned the survey and that's really what guides us every few years when we do the town plan. And one of the striking things, at least to me as someone who's been on the commission a while, is that how little the opinions have changed over the course of the years. And that most people just want to keep we're pretty happy with the town, and that's the way we feel on the commission. The biggest change that we picked up on in the survey was the recognition that more housing is needed, especially affordable housing. So one of the major, probably in my mind, the major change in this town plan as opposed to past ones is that we've pretty much taken away anything that we would ask Act 250 to enforce in terms of residential development. No more lot sizes, no more, and the Act 250 doesn't kick in until there's a development that's going to develop 10 or more housing units. So most people will just probably never see Act 250 and never even have to know about the town plan with anything they're going to do on their property. What we did keep from past town plans was the try to get some handle on commercial development, especially in certain areas. What we've always been, every town plan has tried to do is direct commercial development to the town centers. And as most of you know, there's 3 town centers. North Hartland, Hartland Four Corners, and here Three Corners, with Three Corners being the main where the town offices are and most of the businesses. But there is a state designation for village centers, and we were fortunate a few years ago to get our village centers. We not only got the Three Corners, but we were also able to get Four Corners and North Heartland designated as village centers as well. So I don't think there's that many towns that have 3 designated village centers. What the village center designation does is if people do want to do, want to make either what they need, it's access to loans is basically state-supported loans, and it encourages commercial activity in those areas. I guess to explain some of the other changes, especially in chapter 1, which does refer to land use, what's on the screen there is a land use map of the town. And most of the other, so maybe I could just go, I don't have to point to it, but you'll see that the villages, we just scrolled up. So there's North Hartland, they're in orange. There's Four Corners, and those are the 3 village areas. And so that's where we're trying to do most of the commercial development, or keep it where it's developed. Then you'll see a yellow area that falls. We used Old Town extended the village between Four Corners and Three Corners, and so that was all one solid village area. We were informed that that was inconsistent with the state designations as the village centers and wouldn't qualify those, or would jeopardize qualifying the village centers if your land use town plan didn't conform to what you had put in for the state village centers. So that's why that changes. And the yellow area is called rural residential, and it's where we recognize there's been more development, sometimes mixed use, people, mostly home businesses, and in the town plan, there's still that encouragement but the main difference between the rural residential area and the town village centers is the scope, I guess, of any commercial development. We're trying to keep commercial development in the rural residential area as home-based as much as possible. There are 2, what we called, let me just make sure I get the right term, because this is a new term. Basically, it's where the interchanges are. There's one where Route 4 and 12 meet, and these are called rural business areas as opposed to rural residential. And so there's one up, near Tassville, Route 4, and there's a few businesses there. And the other one is on one corner of the interchange at exit 9, and that's where most of the businesses, or all the businesses, are concentrated down in that. And those areas are much more generous in terms of what, the types of things that we would allow. The main drawback in those areas for businesses is traffic patterns. So we keep that in mind. But there's, we're trying to first of all, the state is very clear about this, and the regional development is also clear that they don't want interchanges to get crowded and dangerous. So that's where those are. There's a pink area just to the right of the yellow and the red, and that's the industrial area, and that's the part that's really on the other side of the interstate for folks who've been down there. And that's, we're trying to encourage what's already there. those types of businesses that need more land, that, don't have to worry about, there's very little there is some, but there's not as much residential, and so you don't have to be as sensitive to that consideration. The next portion, and this is also where there's changes. Under the old map, everything that wasn't in what I've just described was called the rural area. And we've divided, again, on the advice and encouragement of the regional planning people, to divide there's a rural area, and then there's a rural agricultural and forestry area. The rural areas are in white. The rural agricultural and forestry areas are a little more restricted in terms of what we would like to see, because those are wildlife corridors, and they've been designated on state maps as such. And so there's a statewide push to try to keep wildlife corridors intact. And Hartland has, for the town its size, has quite a bit of, a lot of the land that's out there is already in conservation, so it's not really a problem. But the white areas are more along the main roads that go through. So there's more development there. You'll see the off Rice Road there at the bottom, Route 12 going north, and Route 5 going north. Those are, there's already quite a bit of concentration of housing and some home businesses. So that's a summary of where we are. What I would suggest is this is where most people are interested in Chapter 1, because that's really the land use part of it. So if you have any questions about it, I think we prefer that we do it at the end, so we don't spend a lot of time answering questions on this and extend the evening. So if you could just hold on, I'll come up, I'll stand up again, and we'll talk about that later. So, but if you want to go to the next part of the town plan,
The housing.
Yeah.
And as Dan said, we put considerable time into the town survey to really measure the sentiment and needs of its residents, of the community. And again, consistent with prior surveys, two needs were front and center, or 2 points of view. That Hartland's rural character not be lost, but that there should be more affordable options for the people who live and work here. So those were really touchstones in the entire survey, was in our work on the town plan. But those in particular, the need for housing, there's nothing novel or radical in that, and that's really reflected in a lot of the work in terms of land use. The plan doesn't go and prescribe actions that the town should take in realizing the end of more affordable housing, but it does make clear that the Planning Commission believes we should foster expanded opportunity for housing and limit impediments or restrictions on realizing that end. So I think that's quite evident in the revisions to land use. And in housing, well, I think we can reasonably think single-family homes is what we're talking about for the most part. It's certainly not limited to that. We think of multifamily, we think of smaller apartment housing. We even think of perhaps different centers, whether for the or along those lines, housing that would benefit the community and its residents. There are practical limitations, probably the most visible of which is the infrastructure limitations that there would be to expanded housing. But that's where we see, okay, If there's someone with an idea, with a vision, with the wherewithal to pursue that, we want to limit the town's restrictions or impediments to realizing that end. So again, nothing radical, but that's what the land use tweaks, changes, hopefully will allow us to realize. Anything else, Steve? You wanna-
I just add one comment that I think Dan referred to the regional commission. And Two Rivers has done a nice job of working with us to keep us informed about changes that are taking place at the state level, to make sure that anything that we include in our plan would meet those particular requirements. They've also been involved in communicating information back to the looking for, based on the number of units, how will we determine the number of units that might be asked of a particular community. That would be something that would be like different variables have been considered in, if you will, formula, although nothing has been finalized. Items, for example, is there infrastructure available in a town that would make some sort of development more practical? What kind of access do you have to main highways or interstates to make your particular community more attractive? So all of those factors are part of the consideration for a formula that would ultimately identify a number of units per town. And if you don't have any of those criteria that I mentioned, then it might just go back to what is your current town population, based on other town populations within our particular region in the state. How many units might we consider to attempt to achieve? So that's all an ongoing process, but much of what we have here, all of what we have here, has been initially reviewed by Two Rivers, and their input has been invaluable in directing us in some areas.
I don't see that something will be happening overnight. Be actively following the housing issue in Vermont to realize that it's beginning to get considerable attention across the state. All communities really are dealing with this issue. But I think over the next few years, it'll be a subject, a need of focus. And again, at the state level, at the regional level, at our town level, and it will not be something that we can take our eye off.
Let me add also that the Hartland's at a disadvantage compared to many other towns. Is like, we can say we encourage housing, but there are limitations here. We don't have public sewer and water, and so it's very hard to get developments here. And so that we mentioned in the town plan that would be a good idea, but we can't be blind to the fact that that would be a big budget item for a town like the Hartland. But it's almost trying to get it all both ways or always. So that's always the problem. So we have to keep that. It's not like we can encourage housing, all we want, but if there's physical or topographical impediments to it, there's nothing we can do about that or to change it, without some very radical change that would have to occur in town in terms of public utilities. So. The rest of the town plan is mostly sections that were, most of them are, town plans are, there's a statute in the state statute that towns have to have town plans, and they have to include certain provisions. So most of these, there's very few changes from past town plans in any of the other sections. The main changes were the emphasis on housing in the, that's now throughout the plan, and the shoring up, if you will, of the, what had always been the intent of the town plans to try to concentrate and limit commercial development in the villages, with the recognition that the village, Hartland is not set up for, large scale regional commercial development. So we did have some provisions in there to advise Act 250 that we felt that that would be out of scale.
It may seem odd that, given the continuity from the current plan to the proposed plan, a considerable amount of time and work and research went into it, even though you don't see a lot of radical changes or deviations. But again, that's reflective of what the town, its residents, the community, said to us. So it's been updated. It's living in the present, I think. But yeah, so now questions, discussion of things that are on people's minds.
Voices up, please.
Yeah, so say if you want to get recorded, try to keep your voice up, and maybe stand if you had a question. So.
And you should know this is being recorded, just so
Could you speak louder as well?
Yeah.
Yes,
that's what-
sorry.
Like
Sorry.
Very few,
I know, I do.
very few people say that to me. Yeah.
I have just one simple question, Dan Gotzig. I noticed that a lot of the demographic data in there was from 2020. So I'm wondering if that was pre-COVID, during COVID. We've seen a lot of demographic changes since or as a result of COVID. So I'm just curious if there's updated data since.
Well, if the data is, much of it is from the census. And so you've got a time limitation there. Some is from the Federal Reserve. Some of the more current housing information can come from different real estate and lending institutions. But the demographics, that is always going to be somewhat stale. Developments during and post-COVID would not be reflected in that data. And I don't think it would lend itself necessarily to intuiting what the changes may have been. I don't know what else to add.
There's certainly, go ahead, Kate.
In the energy chapter, for instance, chapter 6, keeping track of the various data gathering centers, the information comes in for 2020, 2025, 2023. So you can see that it's pretty difficult to get one single handle on data and demographics.
But the data we have on aging and things like that demographic, it's clear Hartland's getting older, and it's pretty rapidly in the last, let's say, 10 years. And it would be interesting, do you have a sense of what's happened did COVID accelerate that, or do you think, I have no, we just don't know.
Made me feel a lot older.
Well, we survived it.
But we've, noticed things like population increase in the region. Certainly Woodstock saw a big uptick in their elementary school population.
Yeah.
And we've also seen a lot of houses built, at least in our area, on open land since COVID. So
yeah, I've noticed that too. But it hasn't translated to increases in our elementary school.
No.
So there are houses coming up, but it's a different demographic who's building them at this point. So, and that's one of the point John was making, is that we just don't want Hartland to become this enclave of wealthy people, and so but you know, it's, when your hands are tied in terms of what, you know, what you can physically do or encourage, and you have to rely on the private sector so much to do this, all we can do is encourage them and not put roadblocks in the way, but, you know, we can't do anything about, you know, we can't make water appear, we can't, you know, have a sewage treatment, you know, without, you know, a huge commitment, so.
We have no, there were no, we talked about the second homes, and that's a vital part of Hartland, but that wasn't our focus in land use, thinking about housing. It was the people that live here all the time, that work here, and that need a home to live in, and within their means, right? You know, affordable housing. I think when you say that word, it may connote a certain, perhaps subsidized housing. Affordable housing pertains to, I'll call them regular people, the people who live here. And yes, we also were thinking about lower income housing too. We were thinking all-inclusive housing. How do we not exclude anyone and keep the vibrancy of the community, because that's where it's coming from. We also were very cognizant of the age demographic. You want continuity. If someone raises a family here, well, why shouldn't their kids be able to afford a home here, to work in this area? So those were all the kinds of things we were thinking about. How do we foster those? You had a question.
Yeah, I don't really have a question. My name is Ione Mine. But I've been knocking these ideas around because they come up to me at work. And like right now, the state is seeking input on their draft plan for, John, can you help me with this?
No, we don't.
Defining the revamped Act 250 based on a law that passed in 2024 is defining certain parts of the state as Tier 1, which is the established villages and downtowns. Tier 2, the stuff in between, and Tier 3, the wildlife corridors and stuff, the things that really should be preserved as natural as possible. And so the state is still figuring out how to define Tier 3 exactly. And so these thoughts are percolating in people's heads. And the other thing is about housing. There's now, because of state initiatives, a lot more money going to be made available, or not necessarily money available, but flexibility for municipalities to be able to assist developers with funding and to take on a little more debt than, like, you've had a limit of, you have to like pay the debt back within a year or two. And now I think that's a 3 to 5 year limit coming up. So there will be kind of this mutability now and in the coming years that has not existed for decades. So what I'm hoping is that the powers that be in Hartland can help encourage developers who are interested in, like, creating infill housing in the village centers. Like, you know, maybe there's a way to just kind of create an extra little something on an existing lot that won't overwhelm the existing septic system. And boy, there's a house out on, not far, in between the 3 corners and the 4 corners villages. That's an old house, and I'm sure it doesn't have a bathroom for every room. But I look at that and like, this would be a great place for people who are old enough that they don't want to maintain their own house anymore, but they want to stay near others who are still basically active, can do stairs, don't need to be in a nursing home, but that they could live together. There was a piece on Vermont Public recently, a rerun of about a place in Randolph where does this ring a bell for anybody?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, where a couple of women are running basically a boarding home for people who are probably in their 60s and 70s. And it maintains community, and it maintains interactivity and guarantees good meals every day. And it sounds like a great opportunity at a relatively low cost. And if we can just somehow encourage relatively wholesome approaches to making it possible for more people to live in concentrated areas, that would be great. The other thing is that my experience with the younger people, with the people who have moved into town recently, is they tend to be younger, and so young their kids aren't even in school yet. So give
So
them
there's
2
hope.
years to have their roots here, and they'll come up through the schools.
When we revise the plan next time, hopefully that'll be.
But by the way, much of what you said was a topic of our discussion. In when we said we tried to minimize what would be perceived or interpreted as impediments to creative thinking, to solving the housing issue here. What we did not is say what the town should do, or the town may well decide it wants to, however, subsidize or encourage housing. But that's a decision for town leadership. What the plan won't do is put any obstruction in of that. Hey, it's going to be an uphill challenge to meet the housing needs for many reasons, right? Some very practical, others, there's always inertia to change. And then just the economic environment. Oh, sorry.
Voice.
Apologize. But we definitely, we looked at those things. We did a lot of research on that. And yeah, we are seeing what other communities are doing. Sir, in the back.
Hi, I'm Tom Kennedy. I'm a resident. I'm also the district manager for the Greater Upper Valley Solid Waste District. Greater Upper Solid Waste District owns property off of Quarry Road, which is right next to Twin State Sand and Gravel. So the Solid Waste District bought the bridge that crosses 91. You're using similar language in your description of industrial areas in this version of your town plan as you did in previous versions. And given that you have the largest sand and gravel operation in the state of Vermont, I think they're very good neighbors. You also have a solid waste district that's trying to do things. I think it deserves more than 2 paragraphs. It's very difficult when to define where in the town plan what is visible and not. One of the things that is very troublesome, as you say, is appropriate for the continued expansion of its current industrial activity. So that it doesn't allow for expansion of different types of activity. And so we right now have a compost facility up there. We also have a facility that takes packaged goods. We're thinking of doing some other things in the solid waste arena. So I would appreciate if you could put some more meat on the bones when it comes to that. You also don't necessarily, hey, there's no goal, there's no policy. Well, there's a policy, but your policy really isn't necessarily a positive thing. It's you're raising issues in your policies, because this area, through the establishment of that bridge, is your only true industrial area in town. We have no neighbors, we're away from the river, and so on. So if you're going to have expansion, and we're talking about developing our tax bases, this is where you're really going to have it. We own over 100 acres in that area. Twin State Sand and Gravel, most of their land now is in Hartford, but they also, so it's really an area for employment and tax base. And also, implicit in all this is, there's truck traffic and so on. And so, thank you.
Thank you.
Doug Linnell. Early, when you were talking about housing, it sounded like you had gotten some state numbers or something for like how many units we might be deficit in. Can you give us a sense of that? I didn't see it in here.
There's, it's still, to my knowledge, in more of a draft form.
Yeah.
The one number that I did see for Hartland was 325 or so units, maybe
So
it
we
was
could
28.
absorb that many, say, apartments.
And that was based on the unfinished formula that was based on population.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a sense of
I
that
wouldn't
number.
put too much stock
No,
in
and
that.
that-
That's definitely a work in process.
It's not, to my understanding, it's not an enforceable number, it's more of a target.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, at least at this stage, doesn't take into consideration the differences between towns with infrastructure. So that's a big,
I don't want to get too far ahead because a lot of this is still in draft, but there were two criteria that had been discussed. One was infrastructure and two was access to an interstate, for example. If you had both of those qualities, then your number could potentially be higher. If you only have one of those, then it didn't apply and it went right back to your population. Once again, I don't believe that's been finalized, it's still draft.
Just trying to get a sense, it's
Sure.
not 1,000, it's.
No, it certainly wasn't 1,000. All right.
No.
seem to be overly optimistic.
It's tied to population.
Wondering how the state felt about it, whatever, however you keep talking. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm Amy Ashline, and I guess I have a question on the preface on page 10. You guys specifically talk about this is not a zoning ordinance, but then later on in page 16, you specifically talk about land use goals and adopting zoning bylaws. From everything that I've seen, both zoning ordinance and zoning bylaws, they refer to the same fundamental goals. So it's, I guess, is the preface accurate in what you guys are saying, that this is not a zoning ordinance? And can the zoning bylaws be removed? Or there's definitely a difference in?
No, what we were trying to convey there is that this plan is not a zoning, there's nothing you can enforce in here that say you can't do it because the town plan says you can't do it. But we, as a planning commission, we would support, we think that Hartland is one of the very few towns now that doesn't have any land use ordinances. And our position is we think some well thought out and targeted ordinances are a good idea. So we're not in a position of, relying on only Act 250, that we can take some more control over things. And so that's all that sentence meant, that so zoning ordinances should be considered, but the planning commission doesn't. This is something that the town government has to do. So this document is not a zoning ordinance.
So you're saying it's not a zoning ordinance, so then the zoning bylaw language through the document, that can be looked at to be removed
No,
or changed?
well, it's a recommendation. So, we put it in there, consciously, but we didn't want to, if you're looking for something that's neutral, it's not going to be that. We think there should be some ordinances here, so.
So I think it's deceiving to people that in town, Hartland is known for not having zoning. So to say it in the preface of a document that says it's not a zoning ordinance, but then to have it hidden in the document that it's bylaws and that it's strictly going to go ahead and have ordinances that specifically restrict people, that seems a bit, I think, deceitful, and I think town people should know this, and so that they can.
What you should understand is that only the select board can approve an ordinance, period. What the process has been in the past is they ask the planning commission for their opinion on maybe what should be in it. We have not been asked, nor have we made any comments. And that's something for the future. So I don't know quite what your interpretation of page 10 is, but we certainly have no current wording for a zoning ordinance, nor will we until there's some other discussion with the select board.
Okay, so that's good to know, except for on page 10, it says it is not a zoning ordinance, and then on page 16, in the land use goals, number 5, it says adopt zoning bylaws. So that's the contradiction.
But it's a planning
No, but
document.
it's an advice to, that the
Yes,
town,
it
the
is a
town should
recommendation.
adopt, yes. So that, yeah, so that's what we meant. And the other thing that's at play is that any town that has bylaws, and the vast majority of towns in Vermont do, those bylaws by statute can't be inconsistent with the town plan. So what we were trying to avoid, if we think that the select board should consider bylaws or ordinances, we couldn't have anything in here that would say, oh, the town plan says no, there's no, so that's what we were trying to avoid. So that's why just general language that we would, that we're not against bylaws or ordinances, but that this document isn't it. So there's nothing in here that would stop anything. So
Nor is our role to make policy. We talked about this very subject, where planning commission, we argued all points of that issue amongst ourselves. And in the end, we feel that it is a viable benefit. It's not our decision to make, but we were charged with making recommendations that we think would benefit the community. And that's what we did. That will always be, there will always be controversial subjects or different parts of the community that have contrary views. But yes, we're not making policy, but we're trying to think about the town's future and what may benefit it. Let me just, that gentleman had a...
Yeah, I was just trying to clarify what the procedure would be if the town were wanting to pursue zoning bylaws or ordinances. What would that look like? It's clearly not the town plan, but what is it? So that people would know, here's where we should get excited about it.
yeah, I mean, if and when the select board takes this up, my understanding is they would have to, warn it just like any other issue that comes up so you're not going to wake up one morning and find zoning here,
What you should also,
couldn't be further, yeah.
what you should also know is in the past 45 years, the planning commission on 3 occasions at the request of the select board created a draft of what an ordinance could look like. It went on 2 occasions, it went to the select board and they said no, period, over, done. Then I think 15 years later, they asked us to do it again. And we came up with a draft. And it went to the select board, they never acted on it, and it expired. So that's what to look for in the future when you're trying to see what's happening in town.
It won't come as a surprise to you. The survey is reflective of the people that participated in it. There wasn't 100%. There was very high statistical participation in the town survey. That particular subject was almost a 50-50, as it was the prior survey. So that comes as no surprise. And, we won't be surprised if it's a passionate subject that the community will absolutely be involved in.
Amy, another way to answer your question is that the town plan number 1 is not the ordinance. Within that town plan, it gives the option for an ordinance process, development process to take place. That would be initiated by the select board, and they may most typically, as you've heard, charge the planning commission with developing some kind of broad or specific or limited or not ordinance. It would then go back to the select board, and through all of that process, there would be ample time for input from the community.
So, and it was just discussed 2 days ago that once this is adopted, that you guys would be working with Two Rivers as well to make a zoning and subdivision regulation. And so that's why it does go kind of right back to you to make the policies and regulations.
But only if charged with that assignment
Well,
by the town government.
So-
I mean, we do not do that of our own volition.
But it would generate out of us.
Yes.
Yeah, so, and that was the discussion during the select board meeting last Monday, so that's why
Yeah.
it's a little contradicting when you're saying that you don't do it, but it was just discussed that you will be
Well,
charged with it.
we can't do it on our own. We do it if we're given the task, the assignment. And you know, I'm thinking about, was there any misleading? I don't think so. I do not think we were disingenuous. We believe, and it's just an opinion of the commission, that it would be beneficial for the town to explore that. That was our recommendation. It's nothing more than that. So I don't want to give the impression that we're saying one thing and trying to do something different.
I also have noticed page 10, and I realize that this is unenforceable, as has been said. But you very specifically said that you've chosen your words with care, like shall, must, limited, prohibited. Shall is used in the entire document 57 times. Must is used 52 times. Limited is 18 times. Prohibited 9 times. Consider 101 times. And should 206 times. So it's definitely
It's
the
purposeful.
affirmative.
It's purposeful, the choice of words. That was, again, another subject of considerable discussion that transcended this body, okay? There was guidance from the town, certainly from Two Rivers, and I think we learned a lesson. The difference between what you might intend in a plan and how you've evidenced that intent in the plan. And so words took on an outsized meaning in this document.
Who will enforce this shall, must, should, prohibited?
I don't think that's an enforceable document. What it is it makes clear the intent. There's no ambiguity as to what we're saying. It's quite clear. It's not a law. It's not an ordinance.
There's 10 criteria under Act 250, and number 10 is that a project that is subject to Act 250 has to be, or should be consistent with the town plan. And when the Act 250 folks are making a decision of whether a project is consistent with the town plan, they look to the language of the town plan and they ask, is it, you know, can we find something in the town plan that would either encourage or discourage this project? And so they have told us, and not many times, but when we've been unsuccessful with our position at Act 250, that the town plan is too vague. So we were advised to not make it vague. And so if there is something that the town plan advises that might come under Act 250 jurisdiction, we want to make it clear, convey to the Act 250 people what the town plan is intended.
So that would mean that it is enforceable if in connection with Act 250.
Yes, but Act 250 can, but it would, it has to meet, there's 10 criteria for Act 250, and this is just one of them. So a project, I don't know any project that's come, it's gone off on number 10.
The decision would not hang on that one statement, that one principle of Act 250. I'm not sure it goes to what our intent is. Is it enforceable? No.
But
it's interpretive.
Yeah, but we've been asked to make it that every town should make its intent clear. So that's what we were after here. So so the Act 250 people can look at this and say, what does the town plan say? Or is it just, did they say, maybe this, maybe that?
So when the select board says, hey, we want to see some zoning ordinances, you're going to basically go back to the town plan and lift a bunch of this stuff, rework it slightly, and then say, okay, here it is, and we've done it quickly.
Yes, the state statute, any town that adopts ordinances has to be consistent with the town plan, and we didn't want the town plan to be an impediment should the town choose to do.
All of these words that she just pointed out are, you must, this. So that's what zoning ordinances are going to have, and someone is going to have to enforce that, not Act 50. Somebody in the town is going to have to be a zoning officer, or whatever it is that you're going to, a bylaws professor.
Again, that's town government.
Yes.
The town would, if the town decides to implement.
Oh, they'll ask you to do it, you know that.
I know, that's not the question, but
yes, it is. They will ask you to create zoning ordinance.
And then we will do our
They
job.
certainly will.
But we will
and you've
not.
got an outline already.
Yes,
and a lot of it done.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, we're not going to say that we're free of opinions on where we think the town could benefit from a zoning ordinance, but we can't conjure one, and what we wanted to do was not put an impediment if that's what the town wants to do. So if you're going to argue that the town plan should be an impediment, we have to respectfully disagree on that. But
I have a question under the energy chapter. We're talking about rebates for EVs, which have basically been stopped. Mm-hmm. And so Two Rivers has suggested that the town, as of right now, 2025, should have 149 EVs in the town. Now, Steve can call it a goal or whatever you want to call it. Is that realistic? Because in the plan itself, it says, as of 2023, there were 8 regular EVs in town and 5 hybrids, plug-ins. So they're suggesting that, well, okay, in the last 2 years, there should be another 135 or so more that should be there. You see, I don't see why you would put that kind of information in there. And there should be something about that. They stopped, EV sales are going.
Well, that just happened so recently that.
Shouldn't that be updated in the plan?
But it happened in the last three months. Yeah.
Well, it's there, but I mean, since this is only a draft, shouldn't that be in there? And the other thing that Two Rivers has done is they've suggested that from now until 2030, we should be building 150 to 220 new houses. I don't think that's realistic either. So I think that, okay, that's a goal. Well, it's fine to have a goal, but if you don't reach a goal, you're not successful. So I think a goal should be something that can be accessible and make people feel good that they've met the goal, not that they haven't done it. And then their information should really be updated. They've got energy information from 2016. So I think that that's really out of date. Anyway.
Thank you, thank you.
Also, there's no more charging at the park and ride.
That's true.
That's in here too, so that's gone. And I don't see why you should put in there that we should invest in fast charging infrastructure for what? For 8 people in town? Or however many there are. It doesn't seem like a good use of money. I guess, our roads could be upgraded, that would be something good, anyway.
Thank
Could
you.
you ask people to identify themselves when they speak?
Well, my name is Bruce Merrick, I live on Fremont Road.
Your name is Gloria Merritt. Well, it's being recorded, that's why. Okay.
So I'm Amy Ashland, and I just have another question. You talked about some information just barely being a couple years old, and that kind of being old. So if this plan is gonna be in effect for 8 years, how is this gonna continue to be updated and accurate?
Yeah, it probably won't be until the next time we do a town plan. We don't update it as things change. It's just a snapshot of where we are with the most available information at this point. So you're right, we're not going to be able
So we're gonna look
to.
at information
Yeah.
that could be 10, 12 years old, and if the state has better information that they're really trying to push when it comes to affordable housing or anything, if this overrides, and we have bylaws or plans that override and not, we're gonna be who's gonna enforce that? How's the town going to be doing this on their own?
Well, I'm not sure the question. We stay current on what the state is doing. We do rely on Two Rivers, but we also read a lot that's coming out of Montpelier, that's coming out of other communities. I'm sure that the town manager does much the same. Now, are we updating that document? No. I think a lot of government information isn't necessarily updated, but we're not just being static with it too. That's a planning document. That data went in to the planning document. I don't think you would change a planning document real time continually. That's not the purpose of a planning document. You don't ignore new information, but I'm also not sure with some of that, what the state is doing. And I don't see that it's new laws and would affect what we're doing. I take that under advisement and think about that and research it more.
I can interject just a little. Is it possible to revise a town plan before its expiration date? And the answer is yes. But that's a different conversation. It does address your question about, well, what if the world changes? How are we going to make sure that our planning document meets those new criteria, new data, etc.? It is possible for that, for a plan to be updated. Most plans don't get updated, not unlike what John was saying, is that they are a point in time where you're looking to the future, and that's sort of the path that you're going to follow. But if things change in the meantime, we would be incredibly short-sighted if we didn't consider how we might adjust to changing times or data. So there's a degree of flexibility within the current document, but there's also the possibility of it being completely, not complete, but parts could be revised through a process.
And that's what we would be doing with the town leader. I don't see if there were fundamental changes that affected the governance or the way this community operates. Don't you believe we would be addressing that we wouldn't be cast in concrete and take no action?
I would hope so.
Yeah, I do. But I want to look more into that because it's a fair question. Dave?
Yeah, I just have, my name is Dave Dukeshire. If I want to sell a half an acre of land under this plan to my son to build a house, assuming there's water, assuming I can provide the sewer or anything like that, does this plan prohibit me from doing that?
No.
So if I own a piece of property in town, I can still do as I damn well please.
If you don't need an Act 250 permit,
Yeah.
we don't.
So this is really about looking at what a developer might do if they came into our town, built a lumber mill somewhere, or decided we needed a dollar store, this place or the other. The town has some way to say, wait a minute, that's really not what the voters told us they wanted the town plan to look like. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct. Fair.
And lastly, who's the decision maker about the town plan? Does the town get to vote on whether they accept the town plan? Or is it strictly up to the the select board after their 2 hearings? Which, by the way, anybody can have input.
Yeah.
That was a question.
Yeah, okay, thank you. The short answer is that the town plan has no effect until it's adopted by the select board after they've had their public hearings. So anything that's in here that you feel that the select board should take out, even that we would, maybe disagree, there's still, that process still exists. But at that point, once it's passed by the select board, then it becomes an effective town plan.
So there doesn't need to be a community vote necessarily?
No.
Can the select board ask for a community vote if they wish?
They might, most towns when they do, especially when you get to this, if the town is going to take up ordinances, they might choose to put that to a vote.
So any of the discussion that's taken place or tonight, are you taking that into consideration, making changes, doing another public notice? Or how is this information that is happening tonight?
I could try to answer that one.
Sure.
I am tracking any comments that are made tonight, that I have seen on the listserv, that people have sent. I have a document, and in this document, I am going to align it with this draft of the town plan. Can I talk to them about what's going to happen in our process now?
Yeah.
In November? So we will take all the comments that have been made tonight under advisement. We have our next scheduled commission meeting November 5th. At that meeting, the commission will vote to accept or not accept the draft that has been posted for the past 30 days or so on the town website. At that point, we will pass on, assuming that we vote to pass it, that this document will go forward to the select board with all of the tracking notes that I have, the comments, where they came from, what page they referred to, etc. So that the select board, in their deliberations, which will also include 2 more of these open hearings that we're having tonight, they will be able to take into account anything that we have noted tonight that we as a commission have decided not to act on. Now that's important. If something tonight was raised that we felt was a significant change that we believe really impacted our view on that town plan, and we decided that we wanted to make a change, that gets a little complicated. But if we don't make any changes, then everything here would go forward to the select board so that they would not be starting from square one. I mean, they've been following along in this entire process anyway, but they would have all of the information that we've gathered so that they would have their starting point for conversation, deliberation. And if they chose to change something in the plan, they could do so, have the open hearings, warn them, etc., before they will ultimately vote to approve either this or an amended or adjusted town plan. Their vote then would approve this town plan to go into effect. That make any sense?
Do you folks have an email where, like, for instance, I've got 2 pages of things here that I'm not gonna bring up in a public meeting.
We
but I
do,
would like to
we
be
do
able
have
to
an email.
forward them to you.
Yeah, we
So
do have
Some
an
of them are grammatical and some of them are specific. But if I could have that, I'd be more than glad to
We'll
type this up.
we'll give it to you before you leave.
Okay, I
All right.
appreciate that, thank you.
And so, yes, are there grammatical, some typos, maybe some factual information, all those kinds of, we have made a lot of those notes, some of them that we've picked up in the past 3 weeks or so, some of them that we've received. And it's our intention that based on where this process is going, that when it's appropriate to make those changes, we will. I can't just go in and change them now because we didn't warn those in this draft. But if it's appropriate for the commission to do it or more practical for the select board to add those changes, then that could take place on their timeline.
Any other questions or comments?
Does that much revenue the town gets from the land use tax? Because it's referenced.
Not off the top of my head, Bruce, I do not.
But is it significant? What they're saying is that we won't put the money in the general fund anymore. We'll put it into the town's conservation fund.
Right. Again, I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
I asked that question of the city, and I think maybe it was Stacy Bradley, and she said it was on the order of a few $100. It's not a significant amount. Because it's when somebody takes them out of current use, and then they don't have to pay the penalty until they actually develop the land. And so that can get pushed way down the road. And the amount of money that we're talking about is peanuts.
Thank you.
I just wanted to express my gratitude to all of you for your hard work on this. It's quite a document. I know there was people issues, grammar issues, but it's clearly, there's a lot of work, and you're all volunteers, and I just want to express, as a citizen of Hartland, my heartfelt gratitude for all the hard work you've done.
Thank you very much. And the person sitting next to you would also should get some of that former.
Yeah.
He kept us on. He kept us on task for a big part of this.
Yeah.
We owe a lot to him.
Yeah, and there are others that are no longer on the commission that were huge in the works.
And there's a gentleman that gave us so many hours trying to build a survey.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
I forget his name. Milton. Yep. Gave us so many hours.
Great job.
Yeah. The email?
Yes.
Oh. Do you have it offhand?
Is it just plan?
It's part of the town's email system.
Yeah. Me.
Could I be, we're gonna look up that one, but could I also give you mine, because I'm gonna try to consolidate it, all lowercase, T as in Teresa, S as in Stephen, C-O-N-E, tscone@comcast.net.
That's probably the easiest.
Sure, I would. So it's planning commission at heartlandvt.org.
But that one will get checked probably before the.
Well, yes, however.
Send it to Steve.
I don't care.
Well,
I do, I hear you. But we're gonna send it to the planning commission too.
yeah, as long as what you
We'll have
said
the record in the
also
planning
it
commission.
goes to the planning commission, not just one.
So there is a bigger record of it.
So don't use yours.
One more time.
No, use mine too.
Use them both,
It's easier
use them
because
both.
I'm just gonna literally take what you submit, add it to my list,
Got it.
so we don't lose it.
One for the record, one for quick action.
Yes.
Sorry. I
We're
understand.
doing our best.
Do you want to? Yeah, do you want to adjourn then?
I think, if,
Anybody have a question online?
Nope, there's no chat online.
so if there are no more questions or comments,
One thing, just so we know, who is online?
You made a list of everybody who was
Okay, thank you,
online.
that's all I need.
Yep.
For the clerk.
Yep.
Setting the next meeting is the other piece of business.
And did everybody here in person sign the, not sign, but they check into the, our list?
right? Is your next meeting on the 5th? In November.
Okay. Just so everybody knows, we're gonna have a
So-
meeting on the 5th.
Yes,
Yep.
yeah.
What number was that?
5, November 5, first Wednesday in the month.
Okay, here.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
one more thing.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, not just an adjournment.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So we need a motion to adjourn.
From with.
You need a motion.
You
and a
you need
Within
a
us,
motion
close
from
the
us,
public
yes.
Hold on. It's not quite done. Almost done. That's the point of clarity.
I'll make a motion. I'll make that motion.
We have a motion to conclude the meeting and adjourn.
Okay, I'll second it.
Second. So